Good evening. I'm Jody Barham, the Public Information Officer for Northwest Team 6. Tonight we're having a public meeting focused mostly on the east side of the Cedar Creek fire. So we'll be talking tonight mostly about impacts to the Deschutes County, Deschutes National Forest. But this entire fire is something that we're all working on. In the room with me tonight, I want to let you know who we have.
3 minutes before 7.
It is.
So we just want to let people know.
Okay, getting some feedback that since we're a little bit early, we want to make sure that you know who we have here and who's going to be speaking tonight. And then we'll go into our public meeting for 7 o'clock tonight, since we know most people will be joining us then. So like I said, I'm Jody Barham. I'm the Public Information Officer for Northwest Team 6. We're an interagency team based out of the Northwest. I am from Bend, so some familiar faces that I've been seeing lately, and nice to be working with my home district on the other side of the mountain. Tonight, we're going to have a few different folks come on and talk. We'll be talking about the fire context. What are some of the values at risk on the Deschutes and National Forest and on the Willamette National Forest? We're going to cover an overview of our fire. You'll hear from our incident commander later this evening. We're going to talk about weather and what we can expect in the coming days, what's forecasted. And then we're going to talk about how that impacts fire behavior. We'll have a fire behavior analyst come on and talk to you about what we expect the Cedar Creek fire to do in the next 24 to 48 hours. Then you're going to get an update from our operations section chief, Corey Robertson, and he'll talk to you about what's going to happen on the ground, and particularly how we're working with another team. So some of you may know we ordered Alaska Team 1, and we are going to be jointly managing this fire because it has gotten to the size that it has, and we want to make sure that we have protection both on the Willamette side and for the Oak Ridge community, as well as on the Deschutes side for places like La Pine, Sun River, Bend. Then we're going to talk about evacuations, and we'll have the county sheriffs, both Lane County and Deschutes County, talking about their evacuation levels and where those are at today. Then we're going to move into a question and answer. We've got people monitoring the Facebook chat, so feel free to put your questions in there, and we'll make sure we get those answered within the hour. If we run out of time by 8 o'clock, then we'll be sure to answer those questions after, either tonight or tomorrow. So come back to our Facebook page and make sure that you get your questions answered. Of course, we're always available by phone or email on the incident. So with that, I'm going to kick it off tonight and introduce the people that we have in the room here at Incident Command Post in Oak Ridge. We have online Kevin Larkin from the Deschutes National Forest. We have online Jason James from the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. In the room with me tonight, we have Incident Commander Sean Sheldon. We have Ian Morrison, our Incident Meteorologist. We have Patrick Johnson, our Fire Behavior Analyst. We have Corey Robinson, our Operations Section Chief. We have Sheriff Cliff Harold from Lane County and Sergeant Tom Speldrich from Lane County. Also in the room, we have a couple of agency administrators. We have Molly Julerat and Ian Reed from the Forest. We also have some folks from Alaska Team 1 in the room with us tonight to help answer questions and listen to your concerns. We have Incident Commander Chuck Russell, Public Information Officers Cale Casey and Sam Harrell. So we hope to have a really good meeting, give you some useful information, and take your questions later. So right now, I want to call up online Kevin Larkin, the District Ranger for the Bend Fort Rock Ranger District. So we're going to get him virtually.
Thanks, Jody. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. And I'm just really grateful for everyone taking the time out of their night to spend time with us and learn about what's going on in this fire, the activities that we're undertaking, and where things sit. It means a lot to us that you would do that. I know some of you have been very directly affected by this fire, and just want to know that our hearts are with you, that we're doing our best to get you back into places that have been evacuated. This has been a very complicated fire. It's been on the landscape for quite a while, started in early August. And we've known from the start that this was going to be a complicated fire when it started over on the Willamette National Forest. And as a result of that, just because of the steep ground, the territory, the vegetation type, and all that, the challenges of going in to do suppression work made it, all of those combined made it complicated. So we've been involved on the Deschutes National Forest side, even though it was on the other side of the crest. We've been involved since the start of this fire in helping understand what plans are being undertaken, what strategies, what tactics are being undertaken, and how we can work together to help minimize the risk to all of us as the fire unfolded. Unfortunately, the complexity showed itself, and the fires made a couple of pretty substantial runs that one for sure we weren't exactly predicting, but that's the nature of fire. And so we've been connected through all that. I've actually been over in Oak Ridge at ICP for about 5 or 6 days earlier in the fire. Jody made mention of Ian Reed, who's there with Molly as an agency administrator. Ian is a district ranger, one of my peers here on the Deschutes National Forest. So again, we've been working together as well as we can in this situation, been in great coordination. But again, despite all the efforts that the incident management teams that have been assigned to this fire from the start have taken, the fire did make its couple runs. And so as Jody mentioned, we're here tonight in part to introduce Alaska Team 1, who is here to help us manage the east side of the fire, just to help us deal with the increasing complexity as the fire is crossed onto different terrain and onto a different national forest. For us on the Deschutes National Forest, we're trying to think as broadly as we can, and we're trying to proceed with abundance of caution. The context that we are trying to work within is to protect the substantial values at risk that we all know exist along the Cascade Lakes corridor. That's the primary focus for us at this juncture. And when we consider that, we're trying to construe that as broadly as we can, all the way from Devil's Lake, as where we are looking at trail closures for the Pacific Crest Trail, so we don't have PCT hikers coming into burned areas or getting themselves entrapped in places they shouldn't be, all the way down through Elk Lake, Lava Lake, Crane Prairie, and all the way down to Odell and Wickiup reservoirs. And obviously, if you know the area very well, the place that's getting the most focus, the most time and attention right now is Cultus Lake, Little Cultus Lake and Cultus. Those are the closest to the fire. We're quite lucky. We thought maybe that fire would establish itself on Cultus Mountain last night, but it did manage to check itself up. So that's been a great thing, and that's hopefully will give us a chance to engage and hold it off from advancing further. All that said, there are a number of values that we also have to consider. There's a lot at play, and you'll hear in more detail from the folks from the incident management team. Again, we're working together. We're all in this together, and we're facing a weather event that is likely to flip this fire around a little bit, and it has the potential to threaten the community of Oak Ridge, the whole community of Oak Ridge. So we're doing what we can to support those activities that are needed to protect that community, along with the number of values that are on the Willamette National Forest as well. So we're in it together. We're of course taking care of our home turf as best we can, but we want to work together with the incident management teams and with our fellows on the Willamette National Forest. So I'll leave things there. The last thing I want you all to hear from us is that these teams have great plans. They have really smart minds who know fire very, very well. And we are ready to engage fully. We are engaging fully on the Deschutes side, on the east side of the fire. And we will continue with that goal of protecting the firefighters, protecting the public, and protecting those values, those resorts, and those recreational amenities that we all know and are so much of the reason that we all moved here to Bend. So again, thanks for the time. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jody.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. Next up, we're going to have an overview of the Cedar Creek fire from Incident Commander Sean Sheldon.
All right. Hello, folks. Sean Sheldon, Incident Commander with Northwest Team 6. And first, just want to say thanks for you guys attending this virtual meeting. It's much appreciated from from my staff, and I know from the Alaska team staff as well as the agency administrators that we work for. So we came here, we've been here for just a little over a week. There was 2 teams here previous to us. We kind of went on the same mission as far as the values at risk and the protection of those values. At that time, the key values at risk were the community of Oak Ridge and that surrounding area, the Highway 58 corridor, the railroad and the infrastructure that revolves around that, and then Waldo Lake. And I mean the infrastructure around Waldo Lake, but primarily the purity and maintaining the purity of that lake. Those were the real key ones. Now, I'm not disregarding all the other ones that were out there, the T&E species, both fish and wildlife, the Goddard Grove, the Constitutional Grove, the wilderness values, the trails, the networks out there. Those are all values as well. But we had to focus some of the efforts on those critical ones, and that was what the previous teams did, and that's what we did as we came in and took this incident over. As was mentioned by Kevin, the fire did a couple days ago make a run to the north, and then it proceeded to make a run to the east for a couple days, and then today to the south. And I know Corey will talk later about what all the folks out there on the ground did. At the time the fire started moving to the east, we had some really good dialogue with the agency administrators on the capacity of our team. And we were feeling at the point that we were okay, but we did have a little bit of an issue that happened that really made us really change our mind. And that was we had a family emergency with one of our ops chiefs who had to go home. So that really limited our ability to expand and be able to provide leadership if we expanded our management further to the east. And so we made a unified decision with those agency administrators that it would be wise to bring in another team and look at maybe splitting this fire geographically from an east-west type of way, so that another team could come in and manage that other side as the fire started to expand. And so the good thing was the Alaska Team 1 was sitting over at Redmond, so really close to engage on this fire. And so we've had communications with Chuck and Norm and Peter, the ICs, with my group of ICs, and then all of our team members have been communicating with their section chiefs, getting real good download and providing good information sharing to those folks so that they could take off running and manage that side of the fire while we start focusing in on this fire. And I think that really provides key leadership and a lot of more horsepower in the areas that we need to provide that horsepower versus stretching everybody thin. So in the future, I think we're going to be looking a lot better as far as the management of the incident. We do have a lot of tough days ahead. We're still got some time in fire season. We have some challenging weather ahead of us that you're going to hear, and resources are kind of limited at this time due to a bunch of fires out on the landscape across the state of Oregon and into Washington, as well as our neighboring states in Idaho and California. So with that, I'll pass it on to the next groups. I don't want to sit here and talk all night, but a lot of key information. So really pay attention to what the next folks are going to be saying. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Next up, we're going to have our incident meteorologist, Ian Morrison, and he'll be talking about the fire weather.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ian Morrison, incident meteorologist. And we do have some weather coming up starting tonight. We do have issued a red flag warning for the Cedar Creek fire, as well as the Portland Forecast Office also issued a red flag warning starting at midnight for most of the area along the crest. So what we have going on is we expect winds to shift around midnight from the east, and the winds are going to accelerate throughout the night. So the ridgetop winds are going to come up strong, And as the night goes on, those winds are going to mix down to the canyons and the valleys. So you're going to see those gusts get down to all the towns and residents in the area. Now, the thing with this event is it's going to be really dry as well. So the relative humidities are going to be in the teens and low teens. And we're going to have really hot weather as well, both tomorrow and Saturday. So we're going to have hot, dry, and windy conditions. Plus, the atmosphere is going to be a bit unstable. So with that, that's the reason for the red flag warning. We're looking at our weather matrix. So we have a red flag for both Friday and Saturday. These are all the variables we look at. Anything that is red is in the critical area. So we have a critical fire weather going on both Friday and Saturday. And when we get into Sunday, finally out of this east wind event, we're going to really moderate quite a bit over the next few days. We're going to go back into the 70s, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll hit the low 70s and then into the 60s by the middle of the week. So we do have a lot of moderating once we get through this event. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian. Next up, we have Patrick Johnson, our fire behavior analyst for the incident. Patrick?
Hi, I'm Patrick Johnson, fire behavior for the Team 6. So fire here on the Willamette and the Deschutes, it tends to grow in kind of fits and spurts. There will be a lot of days where it'll only grow a couple hundred acres, not a whole lot of fire behavior, followed by some days where we have some larger runs. The area that my hand is under right here, that was about 1 day's worth of fire. It was around 7,000 acres, went up towards the wilderness. The area out here was around 10,000 acres over about a 2-day time frame. And then we had a little bit of a break. What we're looking at over these next couple of days is another situation where we could have some larger fire growth. What I'm looking at over in the Deschutes is because the wind is pushing it east, it'll kind of flank up to the north and flank off to the south. It seems like there's opportunities to do things with the fire over here. As we move east, we haven't really seen it move east a whole lot. There's some barriers in the way from it. There's a bunch of clear cuts. There's some ridge lines that are just kind of blocking everything from moving that way, along with a bit of a road system and some creeks. We'll see what happens if it moves over the top of those. If it does, it has some areas where it can move quite a bit, but there are those barriers in place, and we'll see how those affect fire behavior over the next few days.
Thanks, Patrick. Next up, we're going to have Corey Robertson, our operations section chief, go over our map and talk about what's happening on the fire from the Oak Ridge area to Waldo Lake, and then over here to Crane Prairie Reservoir, all the way up to Elk Lake, Tumalo Mountain area, just so you're oriented to what he's going to be talking about. Corey?
Yeah, good evening, folks. My name is Corey Robinson, Planning Ops Section Chief for Team 6. So we'll start out, we're in great coordination with the Alaska Team Number 1. We refer to today as the Shadow Day. So we were fortunate to get Team 1 in. They bring the overhead, the middle management that we were lacking, and we were getting stretched thin. So with them coming in, we're in close coordination to figure out how to allocate the resources to be most effective. So what we've got now, starting out in Division Gulf, we're able today to start in at Waldo Lake with an anchor point and move that out and tying into Charlton Lake, using the road system to cut across here to the 46 highway headed north into Cascade. Sorry about that. And then we've got the Holthus Lake group who's been in place, and they've got everything scouted out from starting at, we've set up a DP 590. They're working north on Highway 46, assessing all of the infrastructure that is in the area, and they're taking note on what needs to be ordered, and those orders have been placed. So we've got a good inventory on what needs to happen. We're able to use crews to start prepping the Highway 46. We've tied into Crane Prairie Reservoir, and that was the limitations of what we were able to do tonight. So we were able to hold up there. We were doing a small firing operation tonight off this evening to secure that anchor point down here, coming from Waldo down into Charleston Reservoir. Moving around into Division Alpha, we've had some huge successes up here. Just wanted to highlight using the Winchester Trail System. We've established a really good anchor point coming off of the trailhead and continuing to work down the 2417 road, using a lot of machinery to come in and prep that road for future operations. We've got Division Delta up higher using the 19 road system. Working that around if we need to. That would be the contingency line, and going up further to the north. We go into Division Whiskey Tango and Yankee, continuing just on that, using Yankee to continue around the road system, dropping down onto the Whiskey portion of Whiskey Tango, using 2421 road system around until we hit DP 90, the wilderness boundary. And then we used the Black Creek Trail System across with a combination of trail, hand line sprinklers, and just hose lays to tie that into the Waldo Lake. We're in close coordination currently with the local district to staff up for the future wind events. That rounds out our operation for today, please.
Thanks, Corey. You might have heard some background noise. We do have some helicopters going by and occasionally a train. So apologize if that overshadowed some of what Corey was saying. And then next up, we're going to talk a little bit about evacuations. So while one of our public information officers pulls up a screen share of the latest evacuations, I want to invite the Lane County Sheriff to talk first, and then we're going to go virtual over to our Deschutes County partners. Sheriff?
Good evening, everybody. Lane County Sheriff Cliff Harold, and appreciate that you let us jump in on this. I know that the main focus was Deschutes County and our good friends over there, but we have been communicating with IMT. You know, if you've been in the community for a while, you know that we integrate really well, and that these folks come in and they do a great job of communicating with the local officials, providing us the information we need to know as far as Lane County Emergency Management, your local Oak Ridge city officials, your fire chief, police chief, city administrator, your mayor. All of these folks are getting in a room on a regular basis and getting information from these fire professionals. And so I want the community, of course, to know that. You've heard that from me before in previous events. You also know, if you've been in the community here lately, that this fire has been on the landscape for a little while, and you haven't seen a ton of us because it hasn't been super close to town. You've also heard a little bit about how the weather's shifting, and so that's why I wanted to be here tonight, just to make sure folks in Oak Ridge know you've been seeing this fire for a little while, but the weather change has caused us to take a look at Oak Ridge, and we have now placed Oak Ridge and Westford proper in an evac zone of a level 1. So of course, remember, level 1 is really to be ready. It's be thoughtful, be thinking about what if the evacuation zone increase, where will I go? And then for our rural folks that have livestock, I really hope that you'll take this time at a level 1 to be thoughtful about what you want to do about livestock. So in our previous events, we've recognized that folks who maybe don't make a plan early enough for their livestock end up in a little bit of a panic or emergency mode down the line because they haven't made a plan. So I'm hoping, you know, those folks that are up on High Prairie and those folks that are around the city of Oak Ridge, be thoughtful about a plan for your livestock and for what you've got going on your property should these weather conditions cause us to increase evacuation zones. So just want you to know your local officials are plugged in with these fire professionals. We're getting the information straight from them. We're making decisions for the community. There's been a lot of work gone on behind the scenes as far as prep work should things escalate and cause us to increase evacuation zones. And so want folks to know that. We get a lot of questions about how we notify people about evacuation zones. So I just want to mention tonight, we have placed Oak Ridge and Westford into a level 1. We didn't set off everyone's cell phone in Oak Ridge with that. We don't use that typically for a level 1 notification, much more likely to use it for a 2 and for sure for a 3. We would be using that technology that would make everyone's phone in that geographic area go off. We didn't do that for a level 1, but those of you who have signed up for the AlertSense text alerts to the County Emergency Management Office, you should have gotten a notification, either a text notification or a notification from the AlertSense app. If you haven't signed up for those and you're interested, go to the Lane County website. There's an opportunity for you to do that. Remember, that's www.lanecounty.org. You can sign up for those alerts. And then we also have our evacuation zone map at that website. So there's resources there for you Lane County residents when you're taking a look at your evacuation zones. Please, if you're in the Oak Ridge, Westboro area, continue to pay attention to your local media and to other sources of information, particularly as we head into this weekend of high weather temperatures. Thanks.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I think we've got some public information officers putting that information in the comments section. So those links will be easily accessed by those watching this video and for future reference. So now I'd like to turn it over to Sergeant James, who's joining us virtually from Deschutes County. Sergeant, if you're on, go ahead and unmute and turn on your camera.
Hi, yes, I'm Sergeant Jason James. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. We added some additional evacuation levels last night due to the Cedar Creek fire, but at this point, luckily today, we have not had to add any more. But the same areas that were level 3 yesterday remain that way today. And those are all the areas east of the Lane County line, north of the Klamath County line, the areas surrounding, going up to the northwest side of Wickiup Reservoir, up to the area surrounding Crane Prairie Reservoir, just south of the Lava and Little Lava Lakes. The level 2 still remains the same as well. It's south of the Six Lakes Trail, west of the Cascade Lakes Highway, the northwest side of Davis Lake, and the area around North and South Twin Lakes, west of Forest Road 4262. Including Twin Lakes Lodge, Gold Point Campground, which is at Wickiup, North Wickiup Campground, and Sheep's Bridge. Level 1 is the area surrounding Lava and Little Lava Lakes. So once we get the information from the fire managers and decide which areas need to go into which evacuation level, we're trying to get that information out to the media as quickly as we can to notify the public, and also put it on our social media pages and update our map, which you can find at our website, sheriff.deschutes.org, just to keep the public informed as quick as we can. And that's all I have for today.
Thanks so much. So we have some questions that have come in online that we're going to start answering. And we'll have some folks here in the room, and some of you virtual folks stay on with us because some of these will be for you as well. We're going to kind of group some of them together and hopefully get them addressed. So we have some folks asking about, let's start with sort of where the fire is and where it could be heading. We have a question about the containment level. That was currently at 18% today. So that's where it stands for today. And then there's a question, Corey, I'm going to have you come up. Is it heading towards Highway 126? So that's heading up north over the pass. It's off of our map, but if you want to speak to that, if you expect it to head that way.
Yeah, for that question today, all of the activity was down on the south end. We had all southern movement. And I didn't mention earlier, but we were very active with aviation today, running the scooper planes and heavy helicopters, but all fire movement was to the south.
Thanks so much. And the sheriff answered the question that we got online about if alerts were sent out for a level 1. But I'm going to have the sheriff, Lane County Sheriff, come back up to talk about should Oak Ridge residents feel safe overnight tonight. We're feeling pretty confident, but they're also asking about Friday. So if you want to come and answer that about tonight and Friday, and then I've got another question, so don't go anywhere.
Okay. So that again, we're here embedded with these folks to get the best information we have. So the best information we have has given us the reason to put you in a level 1 to really be thoughtful about prep work. You've heard about the weather forecast, so we're certainly going to be keeping an eye on it. You will see more of a presence from our folks overnight and tomorrow as we watch and see what the weather actually does. So we know what the weather's forecast to do. We're going to be waiting to see what it actually does. So we're putting you in a level 1 overnight. That's be ready. If we thought that we needed to get you started moving out of your homes right now, we would have you in a level 2 or higher. But we do want you to be ready. We want you to be thoughtful. We want you to be paying attention. If the winds kick up and the fire moves really quickly, then those evacuation zones could escalate really quickly. So that's why it's just really important to be making a plan and know right now what your plan is if those evacuation levels, if we start setting off everybody's phone, that you don't then have to think, oh, what should I do? You've already made a plan. If that happens, here's what I'm going to do.
It sounds like you're continually monitoring those. You're taking into account, as we talked about going into Friday, and that severe weather that we heard Ian talking about. So planning for Friday, we know that that's sometimes hard to do, but being in that close contact is really helping you evaluate when to, if they need to go to level 2, make that decision and then start the notifications.
Exactly right. We will have people here at this command post to make that decision if things happen.
And then another question that came up is asking if there's a plan B for folks that might have little to no mobility. Do you have any advice for people like that might need a little more assistance or a little more time?
I do. I know that our Lane County Emergency Manager, Patience Winningham, was working on a transportation plan for that. And I also remember that last year, the city of Oak Ridge contributed significantly to a plan specifically around that. So I'm not standing here before you today knowing what that plan is, but I know people are working on it. I actually asked my PIO if he could get a hold of Patience and find out a little more specifics. So maybe we can provide more information in the chat as we find that out. But I do know folks are working on it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And so while we're talking about evacuations, Sergeant James on virtually, we do have a question about a neighborhood that I believe is in your jurisdiction, asking about the Wild Rivers subdivision. So I would like to kick that question to you to answer.
Okay. At this point, that is not on any evacuation level notice based on the information we have. But if we get some information that it needs to be put on an evacuation notice, we will get that information out as soon as we can. But right now, that's not in our area to put on any kind of notice.
Thank you very much. And we did get a question about, is the fire heading towards Little Cultus here and Big Cultus? And I think Corey addressed that earlier, that it had been moving in that direction. Corey, did you have anything to add on that?
No, it didn't. No movement that way today. Everything
Great.
was south.
So no movement that way today, everything was south. And then we had a question about the involvement of Klamath County. And so Corey, did you want to come and maybe talk about how we coordinate with the neighboring county to the south, involving their emergency managers and some of their personnel as this fire is pretty dynamic?
Yeah, we spent a good portion of today with all the adjoining counties. Klamath, I know the fire chief was on that call, so we did make contact with them. We set up some management action points, which do not reflect on any of the maps that I have around here, but they will be circulated. So with those, they're color coded to go with the evac numbers, the 1, 2, 3, or the ready, set, go. So thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Another question, more questions coming in. So we also had a question that was asked about if there are any parts of Oak Ridge that are planned to lose power at 5 p.m. So could you talk to working with our partners or some of the power companies? And is there a plan to turn off power at this time? Want to make sure if there's any rumors that we're giving accurate information for what we know now.
Yeah, correct. So they were participants in that meeting, and there is no plans to shut power unless we call it, or a natural event would trip that line, a tree coming across or something other than our control. But this time there is no power cuts. The sheriff might have a little bit more clarification on that.
We did have a facilitated meeting earlier today with many different power companies. And so different power companies are following different protocols. If we're talking about Oak Ridge proper, there isn't a plan. They will have somebody available to do that if needed on very short notice. But I know we got a question about 126. So at least one person out there is thinking about the McKenzie Highway 126. And I believe that EWEB does have a plan to cut power, and I believe their plan is from noon to noon. I think that they were solid on that. I think that they were solid. 5 p.m. Okay. Getting the high sign from the back. Anyway, EWEB does have a plan to preemptively cut power tomorrow. Oak Ridge proper has a plan with their power company to have somebody on site available to do that immediately.
Thank you. And then Sergeant James, we had another evacuation question specific for La Pine. So are there any evacuation staging places for La Pine, or is there concern for La Pine if they need to leave? And La Pine is over here on the map. It's about 23 air miles from our fire, but if you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, currently, just like the Wild River subdivision, we don't have any information right now that leads us to believe we need to put them in any kind of evacuation level. If we do get to that point, we will notify everyone as soon as possible. But we're being cautious in our evacuation levels to give people enough notice. So hopefully, if we do get to that point, everyone will have enough notice. We can start them off at a level 1 to get ready and move up from there. But we're not at the point now where they're on any kind of evacuation level.
Thank you. And I know the sheriff earlier did talk about some increased patrols being out there on the roads. So appreciate that answer. Corey, I'd like you to come back up. We've got a couple of questions about point protection on the fire. So there's a question about we'll start with the first one, the many lakes RNA and how will it be defended against the fire? So the many lakes area, as we're moving, as if the fire was to push north, how do you protect some of those areas? Yeah, get out of your way.
So that's a great question, and those plans are still being developed. I said with the time and energy, or the amount of time and the resources that we had, we invested all of our energy back here assessing the anchor points. We were able to get some folks out to do some reconnaissance, identify those values, and we're still working on those plans. I can speak to some of the stuff that was already identified prior to the fire. And what we do is we go in and we'll, install sprinkler systems, fire wraps, use retardant, and come up with plans to exclude that area from the burn. But the plan has not been developed in those far outreaching areas that you've identified. So I can't speak directly to those. I can just speak of what was done prior to us.
Great. And so while we've got you here, we do have another specific question. So the resort area on Cultus Lake, there was a question if you could expand on what preparations and protections are in place for that Cultus Lake resort and the lake itself.
Yeah, so knowing right off that was one of the values that was identified, we instantly put crews in to start assessing. So they go in and do, preparations, removing fuels. We've ordered the sprinkler kits and hose to go around and assess to protect those structures. So specifically in that area, is what has been set up or is ongoing to be set up. Combination with fire wrap, vegetation management, and then sprinkling with water.
Thanks so much. And we have some folks from the Alaska team. Their incident commander also wants to talk about what their plans are for Cultus Lake. Come on in, Kale.
Hey, thanks, Jody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm Kale Casey, information officer of the Alaska team. With Sam here, I want to introduce Chuck Russell, one of our incident commanders. And I know that we're just coming in. We appreciate the warm welcome. We always work as a fire unified family here, so we're going to add capacity. We did get a download from our operations, and I'll have Chuck speak to the plans for what we're thinking now out here for additional divisions.
Yeah, thank you, Kale. Once again, Chuck Russell, Deputy Incident Commander for the Alaska team. We were asked to come down here in pre-position. We came down last Saturday, And luckily we were in this location and we're able to come out and help. As Sean mentioned before, as far as span of control for them, losing operations section chief and being able to staff the fire adequately, we're able to bring some of those extra folks into the picture. And when we're talking about this part of the fire that we will take over tomorrow from Sean and his team, we will have that part of the east side of the fire starting at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And we're going to have it broken into 2 different branches, and we'll have 6 division supervisors. So that'll block that up into smaller pieces. We'll get a few more boots on the ground as far as people looking at those areas that their operations have already identified and start making a plan to put that together. So that's what we're looking at doing tomorrow.
Yep. And then in terms of the information flow, Jody and Dana and I will be working together to be adding a little additional information. Our policy is going to be get it out. So if we're trying to get an operations video that you've been watching every day, but there's a technology delay from Mount Bachelor, our command post here, we're just going to push information at you. So you might see more information. You're definitely going to see more photos from both sides. These divisions are going to be spread all the way up. So it's quite a bit of landscape. We're estimating over 500 additional firefighters to be working these 2 branches and 6 divisions. So there's quite a lot of folks coming in. That support system needs to be built. And so it's going to take some time to get them all in place. But you'll be seeing on INSEWeb, on Facebook, YouTube, the normal routes you've been going, that's the high-tech side. And then on the low-tech side, you'll be seeing additional trap line boards out on the recreation corridors that are closed for popular destination areas here. There are 8 at least additional signboards that are going to go out there. So again, you're going to have about twice as many information officers, and that'll help everybody on the Deschutes side be tuned into what's going on as that smoke sort of raises more concerns.
The last thing that I would add is we're going to be working seamless with Team 6. Sharing of resources, if they have a need, we're going to be there to help them. If we have a need, I know that they're going to be there to help us. They've taken a lot of time to help us get oriented on that side of the fire. It's appreciated, and we've got a good start. And we're looking forward to working with the community, working with Team 6, working with the Deschutes and the Willamette National Forest.
All right. Chuck, why don't you stay here for just a second? We've got a couple of questions. So I'm going to put you on this, well, not really on the spot, because I know you planned for what you are going to do on that east side. So a couple of questions specific to you, asking about what about, we talked about Three Rivers and Sun River. So they're not under an evacuation, but they're over here on Highway 97 area. So they're asking, do you think they're okay at this point?
Yeah, so at this point, knowing what we know about where the fire is at, or what Team 6 has shared with us, we do have operations folks that have been shadowing and on the ground with them. And what we know that the planned weather is for the next couple of days, we feel like that you are in good shape right now. Obviously, we will see what happens after this wind event, what kind of alignment the fire has at that point when the winds do shift back to their normal direction. But at this point, we feel like that far out, we're still in good shape.
Great, thanks. I've got some other questions for Team 6 next. So for Team 6, Corey or Sean, if you could come up, we'll have you answer a few things. So there's a question about what protection barriers or preventive measures are in place on the fire for the Oak Ridge and High Prairie areas.
Okay, yeah, so starting with the primary line, we've got the road system that we explained, the 2417 down around the 2421. And then if you notice, we've got Highway 19 going around, and then we use, sorry, probably should have had Sheldon do this. So yeah, sorry, this is not a briefing map. We've got 1924 road coming down, tying into 2421. So that's our primary, alternate, and then contingency. And then if you come even further back, we've got the road system in place back here coming all the way down. So there's 3 different options that we've got. And that's all the investment that was made from day one of this fire. So there's been a tremendous amount of work done working through this terrain. So there's a lot of good options. The best options out there have been analyzed, worked on, and have a good plan in place to be effective.
So do you think there's any chance of it going up to Eugene is one of the questions. Could it come towards Eugene to the northwest? Oh, no, that's pretty far away.
Yeah, that's a long ways away. So
Right.
I guess anything is possible, but that's very unlikely.
Right, right. And then can you point out to folks, because we know maps are made at different times, what's the latest information that you have on the furthest east reach location of the fire tonight?
So yeah,
How far east has it come?
correct. So this is a fairly active IR map, and it puts it right here at Flemish Butte. And there's a few spot fires out, but that's the latest intel that we have, boots on the ground, that it is right there at Flemish Butte.
Great. So we're also, I'm going to cross over in front of you while you're on that side. We're getting a lot of questions about below the fire, Odell Lake, and then also about Crescent Lake, heading over into, more to the Deschutes side, but again, off our map for tonight,
Yeah.
Down south of us, but lots of questions that's coming in online. Can you talk about if there's any exposure to Odell Lake and the campgrounds or Crescent Lake down to the south?
Yeah, and again, we would go back to the forecast weather. So all of those areas of concern that we're mentioning, not at this time with the wind shift and it being easterly for the next 2 days, 2.5 days.
Great.
And then again, not foresee much southern movement. We're starting to get the anchor point. We've got road systems and containment features built out all the way to the 46 corridor. So southern movement is not as likely.
All right. Thank you so much. We got a question about if there's any evacuation shelter in place. And as far as I know at this time, there's not. I'm going to look to our Lane County partners to address that if there may be an evacuation shelter. And then Sergeant James, also, I'll have you come on after the sheriff to see if there's anything on the Deschutes side.
On the Lane County side, there's no evacuation shelter set up yet, but the pre-planning has been going on should the need arise to stand one up. City of Oak Ridge is offering an air quality sort of check-in, and I believe that's in the multi-purpose room near the high school. But what we're talking about really would be farther down the highway should an evacuation site need be stood up. We've already had an initial connection with Red Cross, and so the pre-planning for that is going on, but there isn't one designated because we haven't had the need at this point.
Thanks for that. Sergeant James, is there anything on the Deschutes side as far as an evacuation shelter goes?
No, we're in the same position as Lane County. We currently don't have any, but we're always prepping for if there is a change and there is a need for one. But if that does arise, then we will get that information out as soon as we can.
Thank you. I can see one of our public information officers writing down some more of your questions online. So I just want to remind you that in addition to this Facebook page, we do have an incident website on a website called InciWeb that you can go to for updated information. We populate that with current information, statistics, evacuation notices, forest closures, photographs, videos. So you can go to that as well. And our public information officers will put that in the comments for this public meeting. It's also listed in the About section of the Cedar Creek Fire Facebook page. So if you want to get other information off of Facebook, that's a great resource. I'm going to grab some more questions. All right.
Jody,
Yeah.
while there's a pause, I just want to throw in, we've talked a lot about some specific locations and some details, and a couple mentions were made of a process with management action points and things like that. And I just want to come back to that for all those who are worried about their specific locations and whether they are in evacuation levels or need to be concerned. And the basic point that I want to remind folks of is that we do at least daily check-ins with emergency managers, fire managers, everybody who has a relevant role in this. And we do look beyond just those evacuation levels. And so those management action points that we set are really the triggers to say, okay, if the fire, which is not there now, if it reaches this point, well, we should start thinking about these other places that are maybe off the map or a little bit more distant at that point. So it's just that point that just because somebody is maybe nearby a fire but doesn't have an established evacuation level, that does not mean that their locations and their safety aren't being considered on a regular, multiple times per day basis. Just want to remind that, and then I'll get out of the way and let the train go by.
Thanks for that. Yeah, that we are seeing a lot of questions. And there goes the train again. Okay, that might have been the last horn. I don't know. But thank you for getting ahead of that. We are seeing a lot of place-specific questions. I'm going to grab another sheet of paper. Thanks, Alexa. So just want to say lots of thanks to the Alaska team. Thanks for coming in and being here. We really appreciate the support. The coordination, that's huge. Want to just say, getting lots of thanks to everyone to stay safe. Thanks for all the hard work out there. Thank you. Keep up the great work. I know we're getting lots of positive comments on Facebook. That means a lot to us, and I want you to know that we do relay that to the firefighters every morning at our briefings. We want everyone to stay safe. Lots of things, and it's so appreciated by our firefighters when they hear that from the community and from people following online. We know that you often have property in or near these areas. We know that your livelihoods are here. And as locals ourselves, we want to take care of this area that's impacted by the fire. And like you heard, even beyond those evacuation levels. So you can always call our fire information line. We are also, like I mentioned, have our NC web page. And you heard from our sheriff's offices, both in Deschutes and Lane County. They're ready and prepared to help to answer some of those questions for you. So I think we're at a point where we're going to start wrapping this up. Want to thank you all out in our communities and afar for joining us tonight for this virtual public meeting. We'll be scheduling more into the future. The next one that we have for this fire is actually here in Oak Ridge. We'll be focused more on the Willamette side of the fire as we're sharing this responsibility now. So that'll be in person and virtual back at the park. And then you'll see the Alaska team picking up likely more community meetings for the Deschutes side. So stay tuned to our Facebook page, our NC web page, and have a great night. Stay safe.